Who remembers Cuubeworld? I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. This game is approaching 10 years old at this point. Come July, 10 years ago was when it first went into alpha. It eventually did arrive on Steam about 4 years ago, and it was pretty disappointing. For a game that was being hailed as the next Minecraft, a real big mix of Terraria, Minecraft and traditional RPG mechanics, it seemed to set the YouTube world alight with so many big creators playing it. But there were a number of issues and problems, with developer taking huge gaps in between alpha progress, and the alpha wasn't a free demo that you could try, it was a paid experience that people had given money to, but not on Steam. Then 4 years ago the Steam release came, and people were bitterly disappointed to find that so many of the features that had been teased over the years weren't actually included, and the game had been significantly changed in how you scale and explore. It picked up a pretty poor review score of only 41% in the first coming days of its release, and that was 4 years ago this September. So many videos have been done over the years about what went wrong with Cuubeworld. I covered it when it first launched on Steam and kept people in the loop on progress. It might seem like a pretty simple game to maybe younger viewers now, but honestly this was absolutely a fantastic experience. The alpha at least anyway. So why am I talking about Cuubeworld now in 2023, since the game on Steam hasn't had an actual update since it ever released, other than maybe like one tiny hotfix soon after? It's still only sitting on a 43% mixed review score on Steam. Well, because the developer is back. Like I said, I did cover this pretty extensively at the time with the failure of the Steam launch, what went wrong, and maybe why the developer decided to actually just disappear off the face of the earth. All their socials were scrubbed. They pretty much deleted a bunch of accounts. Coming from a husband and wife duo, they literally deleted as much as they could and stopped replying and taking any feedback on board. I'm guessing due to what they felt was unfair criticism or over the top criticism due to the Steam release. But yeah, he's back. This is the second blog he's posted. I wanted to talk about this last week, but I didn't even get a chance before he's actually pasted another one. His name is Wale, and he's definitely one of the most mysterious devs I've come across. As I pointed out in my video, a lot of players wanted to assign this as a cash grab. People were upset with features and plans that were supposed to be supposedly in the Steam game, but never materialized. But when you actually look on Twitter with the announcements of this, the comments are actually filled mostly with actual gladness that the game is going to be getting another game, or certainly some sort of sequel. It's titled Cuubeworld Omega, and it's actually a thing that's happening. It's not going to be a free update or DLC for the original Steam game. Instead, it is a brand new version of Cuubeworld. And as I said, so many of the comments on Twitter, at least anyway, are filled with encouragement and happiness that they're actually doing something again. I do find it strange. It is definitely a big juxtaposition from what people were saying on Steam. I wonder how many of these people maybe grew up watching videos of Cuubeworld but never got a chance to actually play it, have maybe only ever seen the alpha, or simply just want the game to be what they originally wanted. Effectively, to keep it short, the alpha had procedural generation, much like the Steam release of Cuubeworld, but enemies scaled with you. And when you played the Steam version, they didn't. So you would find some enemies extremely difficult to defeat, and then some enemies would be super easy. Not only that when you went into a new biome, a lot of your gear became almost useless. There were certain special pieces that would help you traverse or just be really good. But when you went into a new biome, basically it was treated as if it was just low level gear. My memory's a little bit hazy, but actually it may have even been the case that it disappeared and you'd have to find certain pieces again, like the wing glider. I think the idea was to try and help the balancing, that you would go into new areas and it would be more of a challenge, but it was a monotonous grind with not much variety in how you went about things. A simple case of going to some POIs and picking up whatever was there. There were boss fights, but these were incredibly tough as well, and I think you needed to find POIs to reveal the location. But again, my memory's hazy, it has been a while. Understandably, players were pretty upset, and this has been one of the most disappointing features of Cuubeworld. Players loved the natural order of things from the alpha when progression was kind of tied. As you leveled up, enemies leveled up, and your gear would stay good for pretty much a long time. Also that there was more points of interest or more interesting things to explore, let alone the topography that kind of become a little bit more bland. I stopped short of calling it a cash grab because to my eyes, despite whatever was promised with the alpha, the Steam release did adequately state what the game had in it. But nevertheless, I did feel it was pretty disappointing from the developer not to really do any updates to maybe correct features or take on board feedback, and for the developer to effectively just disappear, making it look like a scam. Much like he'd done previous times During the alpha development, he spent massive big amounts of time in between revealing and teasing new features, but wasn't actually updating the alpha much. In fact, he took the alpha off sale very shortly after putting it on, and the only way that you could buy the game was via cracked versions. Maybe this was in response to the idea that, yes, he shouldn't probably be charging for something for an alpha if it was so not finished. But each time he reappeared and showed off something new, it got fans hyped and excited, but then he would go long periods without revealing or teasing anything else. And just a little FYI, he did actually get people, I do believe, who bought the alpha were given a copy of the game for Steam for free. So no one really lost out in terms of a hard-worn backer. Just in the end, the game wasn't what was kind of matched or kind of spoken or teased or promised really. He's got a video up showing the new engine, weather and procedural effects of the game for what he's now dubbing Cuubeworld Omega. It's based on the Vulkan engine. So can he get it right with a pseudo semi-sequel? Personally, I think he would have been better off trying to maybe breathe some life into the original game, updating it with some free updates, and then launch a DLC, a paid DLC. But it has been a long time. If the original was created 10 years ago and the Steam release 4 years ago, you can imagine that technology definitely has moved on and maybe now there's an easier way. Some parts of this new procedural generation look good, others maybe not so much. He's pretty excited about the idea that your character can now be custom generated. So not only can you also custom make it, but it's got much more procedural generation in terms of what you're going to be. I do believe this had a pretty good custom character creation system anyway, but this looks to be taking it to another level. And if he can actually act on the feedback he received instead of ignoring it, and changing the progression system and changing the way that loot works as well as mobs, then he could be onto something. But the strength of feeling on the Steam forums from people that actually bought and paid for the game and did reviews clearly shows more than half of you were not happy with the original. So it remains to be seen if you can get enough people on side. I think the hype that I see on social media definitely shows to me that this game could be a contender again, but he's crucially got to make some changes and get the right kind of help. They didn't have any community manager when they launched. They were taking on direct feedback themselves. So no wonder once people started realizing the game wasn't what they wanted and they started lashing out, there was no buffer to help get the actual feedback they needed. No developer should have to suffer abuse from players, no matter how bad or how extreme something's gone through. Maybe like the CEOs of a company and using a name of a company as a whole to describe criticism, but no individual people. Problem is though, when it's only 2 people that have made this game, well, one of them really, they are the face, brunt and the feedback contact for it, you've got no real choice but to give that person exactly what you think. It doesn't mean you have to be abusive, but I saw why so many people were disappointed. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. Games do badly and then the developers just move on to making the next one. That's pretty normal. A lot of game developers though wouldn't go and make the same game again, just improvements with it, after receiving such a backlash for the first. They certainly wouldn't be taking years and years away from the scene. Pretty much when it launched and we had the first figures back for player numbers, it had 19,000 players at its peak. That's 8,000 more than Smallland recently, only a little bit below other games like Core Keeper and even Grounded on their first initial release. But you can see that jump really went downhill when people started seeing the reviews and the disappointment that the game just wasn't what was promised. So Wolfram, I'm going to tag you in this video. I pray that you watch it all and I really hope that you learn some lessons, valuable lessons from last time. Find someone, there's got to be a moderator in one of the Cuubeworld unofficial discords, someone that kept contact with you that has some skills in community management. Update players frequently on exactly what would be in this new version and make it cheap as chips. The original release was pretty limited. When you compare £18, literally 5 years ago nearly, to what Valheim has offered in the last few years for pretty much the same price, actually cheaper, any new version of Cuubeworld I feel has to be cheap to maybe recognise the problems and issues the developer basically caused himself. Sell this game for $10.99, take a look at what other smaller indie teams can do like Core Keeper, who have only just increased their game from $10.99 to $12.99, and put your game in early access so players can really genuinely see that you're going to be supporting whatever comes next. It does sound interesting. All pets, all NPCs, players, everything's going to be procedurally generated, but you can't procedurally generate your reviews. You need to make sure you're doing things in the right way. The rest of the blogs do go on to show off new GUI. He's updating his music to SoundCloud, and he's talking about giving each enemy an individual ability or some sort of attack behavior, which the original, I guess, didn't have much of. Let me know if you do remember Cuubeworld. How excited were you for the actual proper full Steam release? Did this bypass you completely and you was always wondering what the fuss was about? Does it look good now as someone that's maybe never heard about Cuubeworld? Would this be something you'd want to play? You can go and check out the library of videos I did do on my main survival channel. And yeah, I think I will start keeping you guys in the loop. Personally, I did love the idea of this. I didn't have a PC when it first came out 10 years ago. I'd seen other creators play it and stuff, obviously before I became a YouTuber. And it just drew me in. I love the idea of exploring a world like this. So I'm really hoping the devs can turn things around with whatever they're going to do next. But they've got to do it in the right way. You can't treat it just like you have in the past. Until next time, rat bags, I'll see you later.